Welcome to the Vantage Doers web series. This web series is brought to you by Vantage Circle. In this web series, we bring you practical lessons from the trenches, the how-to guides. We will discuss the best tactics that can help you rethink your employee engagement strategy with actionable approaches and solutions.
Welcome everyone to the second of episodes of our Vantage Doers web series. So we recently started this Doers web series to share learnings and some expert on-the-ground advice from how to plan and implement different HR programs. So we have been working with different kinds of HR companies across geographies, across industries, different sizes of employee base. And we have seen that many of these companies, as well as the HR practitioners, have very good strategy and vision around what they want to do. But when the rubber meets the road, we have seen some real implementation and adoption problems. Sometimes it's, of course, the technology and the tools problem, but many a times it's planning and implementation failure. So we thought that, let's get some experts, let's get some practitioners who have actually done these things in different companies. And that's where this whole doers concept came. This is the second one which we are doing. We'll have a sequence of webinars on different employee engagement programs. So today's webinar, of course, as you know, it's one of the most important topics now, driving employee engagement, particularly in this current scenario. So we have with us Anjali and Saurav, who have each more than 15 years of HR experience, both in consulting and corporate HR. So before I hand it over to them, just to let you know, this is going to be about 40 minutes session, and then we will have the Q&A going on. And of course, you can please get your questions in the meantime, and we'll answer at the end of it. And before someone asks, yes, we will be sharing the link and the presentation videos by tomorrow on our website. Okay. Over to you, Anjali. Please take it over.
Thanks, Partha. Just give us a second to pull up the material. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. I hope you were able to join the last one that we did, which was about driving cost reduction during the time of COVID with minimal impact on the employee morale and employee engagement. With that, in the past, what we want to get on to right now is then talking about the impact part itself, which is the employee engagement. So today's session, we will focus on how the workplace has changed, the environment that's changed, what are some of the impacts on employee engagement, and the challenges and opportunities that are coming out from this new environment. So we will start with the first section, which is basically introducing the entire new workplace and the new environment that we're going to get into. Now, as we all know, the workplace is not going to be the same again. A lot of employees are right now still, of course, in the work from home situation, and this is something which is here to stay. When we talk about COVID, we talk about the impact. What we are learning from a lot of organizations is almost that a quarter of the companies are saying that work from home is something that they will consider from a long-term strategy perspective for jobs and roles that are possible to be worked out remotely. Now, even if we look at organizations which might plan to come back and start their offices, there are a lot of organizations who will consider that, but the timeline is still around 6 to 12 to 18 months. So if you look at some of the charts that we've put up here on the screen, we're talking about quarter of the employees, the earliest that they're looking at is September 2020. And then from there goes on to June 2021, and then also Jan 2022. So essentially, the bottom line is that the situation is here to stay. We have to work around it. There are some challenges, there are some opportunities coming out of it, and we will dig deep into what are some of those areas and how can we work through it. Now, in the current scenario, even if this is something which the companies were forced into from a pandemic and government lockdown perspective, it is also something that we are seeing is staying on despite the fact that the lockdown has been removed. There are a lot of relaxations given by the government. However, organizations want to play it safe. Organizations want to be very, very careful about how and when they bring their employees back. A lot of them are still looking at, like I mentioned in the previous slide, not bringing the employees back immediately. Even the ones who have started bringing back, for example, banks, which is essential for them to bring back, or for example, some of the retailers like Myntra, Whirlpool, all of them are looking at only 5 to 10, maximum 15% of workforce coming back into the space. And when they come back, they're looking at a whole host of arrangements in terms of sanitization, the social distancing on the workplace, the travel, the commute. A lot of aspects have changed, and hence the difficulty in bringing people back to the workplace is quite high. Because of which a lot of companies are still saying that, if it is safer for me to keep employees at home and have them work from home, especially given that the productivity has not dropped, why not continue to do that? It's best for the organization as well as for the employee. Now, if we look at the scenario of the entire situation we are in today, working from home, while yes, some employees are liking it and some may not, it does take a psychological toll. Now, keeping productivity and everything aside, the organizations may feel that the productivity has not dropped, but is it the optimal way for an employee to work? Now, if you look at working from home, we do operate with suboptimal infrastructure. What I mean by that is the infrastructure at home, be it your work desk, work chair, or for that matter, even the internet connection, it's never going to be at par with what an office can provide in terms of the efficiency with which an office can provide that infrastructure. The distractions and competing priorities at home will never change. And what I mean by that is when you're at home, while your home has now become your workplace, the home part of it has to continue. The household has to continue to function. So whether it's, the household chores, the meals, the house help coming in, all of that continues in parallel and can now be distractions for the employee who's sitting and working at home. The timings and schedules are all blurred out. When we go to office and we shut down and leave, there is a certain schedule that we are able to maintain that, okay, now I'm in office and now I'm at home. There is a certain timeline that we are able to maintain to a day. However, now being at home, you log in when you wake up and there is no time to really shut down and, log out, because it's sort of blurring into our overall day as the status of work from home continues. Lack of social interactions. This, of course, is as self-explanatory, but essentially social interactions in office beyond the meetings and beyond the work part of it is something which really can be a positive energy for the employee. Whether it's a tea break, whether it's a water cooler break, or just walking up to a meeting or walking back from it. A lot of that interaction provides positive energy for employees, which is missing right now. It's essentially limited to your family members, which of course is great that you could be with family, but it restricts the interaction that you can have. Last but not the least is not being seen at work. Now, what we mean by that is a lot of us get driven by the perception that when you're seen at work, people assume you are working. So, the whole thing of if you're in office, you're working, whereas now I'm not in office. How do I ensure people know that I'm still working? It has become even more important, and the pressure on employees is even more to be able to show that they're able to do their work and that they're delivering. On the flip side, what it's also done is, for example, an introvert employee who may not necessarily be the one who showcases work, but in office, when their work is done and the deliverables are done, that itself is sufficient for them to show their work. However, right now, sitting remotely behind the scenes, it could result in this fear of out of sight, out of mind. So how does one work through some of these fears and perceptions of the employees, which could have an impact? In fact, if you read some of the quotes that we've got from the CEO of Microsoft, Satya Nadella, he is one of the people who's actually being, very, very vocal about the issues with working from home and the possible impact of a long-term arrangement of such nature. So that's the flip side of working from home. However, having said that, Coming back to office is not going to be any easier as well. And this is a dichotomy that we will have to live with for some time, because both situations will have their own very, very significant pros and cons. Returning to office right now, whether it's commuting, the employees could be fearful about the idea of commuting, especially when it comes to public transportation. The difficulty in commuting, because in a lot of cities, the public transportation has not been opened up completely. And even where it has been, it's been opened up with limited capacity. For example, in some of the cities, they're saying the buses will ply, but only up to 50% seating, which will make it difficult from an availability standpoint in terms of the public transport as well. The look, feel, and smell of the office is not going to be the same again. With the sanitization drives, with the cleanliness required, the office will not feel in space that you're in, which smells, possibly of disinfectants and sanitizers. No smiles, no handshakes. We as humans, especially Indians, are very, very tuned to being social people, culturally oriented people, and attached to other human beings. And we sort of feed off each other's energy. Now, when you're wearing a mask and walking around an office and somebody is unable to see your smile, it will have an impact. When you're just, everybody is in office wearing masks and the faces are covered, it will have a dampening impact on the employee. Physical distancing, everybody will have to sit at, a certain distance that will be maintained. And that is something which will be difficult for, again, employees to get used to, who are very, very used to sitting together in teams, sitting close together in huddles. Now, suddenly it will be far apart. And the last one being the personalities playing out. Now, all of this can attribute to different personalities coming out. To someone like me, it could lead to frustration. To someone otherwise, it could lead to anxiety. For someone, it could be like, okay, I don't care, I'm just here to work. So very different personality reactions could come out. And then not being able to know how to deal with that is one of the big side effects that will be there from a work environment perspective. And again, over here, we've got some of the quotes from the research that we were doing. Some of the counselors and, the psychiatrists who are there in the industry right now are talking about how the questions around, returning to work, the fear, the panic has gone up, such that the questions that they're receiving is largely about how to go back to work, and they're concerned about, probably ending up impacting their employees and impacting their families and bringing the virus back home. So some of these things will add to the overall pull down of the engagement that the employee feels. Now with this, I will hand it over to Saurabh to take us through the actual impact on employee engagement.
Thanks, Anjali. Before I get started, thanks everyone for joining. I think there were a few comments about people who had a little bit of issues with the audio. I hope those are taken care of. If not, just ping us again and we'll look into it. The other thing is a reminder that there will be Q&A at the end of this webinar. So if you have any questions, you can keep putting them down into the Q&A box within the Zoom controls. So keep the questions going. So let's talk a little more about employee engagement, and let's talk about it in this COVID impacted workplace that Anjali very nicely took us through, whether it be the remote working environment or whether it be people getting back into office. So in this next section, just going to talk a little more about engagement. Now, employee engagement, typically we've learned it throughout. It's really about say, stay, and strive. What's important to note is that as per research from Gallup, and Gallup is one of the known authorities on the area of employee engagement, as per their research, it is not the pandemic itself that impacts employee engagement, but rather how organizations react to the crisis. So that's what's really important. What is it that my company is doing? How many people are getting laid off? Are there being furloughs? Or from a separate standpoint, what is the largest stand that my company is taking towards society? How are they managing things during this period? And that will really impact what employees say about the company and what they take away about the company. The second one, when we talk about stay, let's not get fooled into believing that the market is down and therefore, people are not going to quit so easily. One, remember that just like in the financial markets, your more astute investors will see a bearish market, a bearish stock market as a great opportunity to pick up good stocks. This could be an opportunity for certain companies which have that capacity to actually go and poach really high performing or high potential employees from their competitors. So you need to hold on to your people. Also, very importantly, it's not just about people leaving the company literally, but it's also about people just checking out of the job. And that's an even bigger risk to take. And the third, which is the most important aspect of engagement in my mind, strive, or how much discretionary effort an employee is willing to put in to help the company succeed. It's at a time like this, when the chips are down, when business challenges are coming in, that companies really need employees to take that additional initiative, to put in that additional effort for the organization. Now, here's where it becomes very exciting. Again, there's been research by Gallup across 65,000 plus business units over decades. And what they have found is that while there's always been a great correlation between employee engagement and company results, that correlation goes up significantly during times of crisis like the pandemic. So what we're trying to say over here is that for companies that can keep their employees engaged at a time like this, the benefits of an engaged workforce are possibly even higher. So while it is very difficult, there are challenges in keeping people engaged. If you can keep them engaged, the advantages for you are significantly higher. Now, how do you play out this engagement challenge? The core orchestrators pretty much remain the same. What's important to understand is that how these orchestrators play out, that is what is changing. So whether we're talking about leadership, and it's about, instead of inspiration, it's more about assurance, whether it is your culture, whether it is the role of the manager, let's dive a little deeper into how these things need to change. Now, talking about leadership, traditionally, we've always believed that leaders need to be inspirational. They need to be visionary. They need to show people the way ahead. They need to excite people, get them inspired. But at times like these, experts across the leading consulting companies, and we've got quotes here from Kincentric, we've got it from Korn Ferry, across each of these HR consulting firms, what they're saying is that there needs to be a change in approach for leaders. They need to show their human side. This is not a time for leaders who are put up on a pedestal. This is time for leaders to actually show that they are human, that they have their own challenges, that they have their own issues, and they are able to bond and connect with the issues and challenges that their team members are actually facing. At the same time, they need to display a certain level of calmness, a certain amount of resilience. They need to be able to paint that picture of hope for their team members. They need to make commitments that they can stand by. And at the same time, they can't shy away from talking about the difficult questions, talking about the difficulties that the organization is going through. Talk about it, but be reassuring in the way you go about it. And most importantly, actually, is the point around connectedness. Can they bring everyone together? Can they help them feel that we're all in this together as a company, as a people? In fact, I was speaking to a friend of mine who works with a US MNC, which in my opinion is doing a really, really good job of managing the situation. And what he was telling me is that at their company, they have some sort of leadership connect, whether it is with the global CEO or with the global C-suite. Almost every 1 to 2 weeks, they have some sort of connect that happens with them. Importantly, in that connect, these leaders make it a point to talk about each and every country where they have locations and talk about the local situation over there. So the global CEO is aware of what is happening in right from India to China to Brazil, and they're talking about it. It's helping people see that their leaders know what's happening in their respective countries, and it's not just one large global picture that they're painting. Moving on to managers. Managers, it's largely about doing the same things, which is providing guidance, providing clarifications to team members, giving ongoing feedback to people, having conversations around personal and professional development, recognizing teams for the kind of work that they're doing. It's just that they need to do more of it. In fact, a lot more of it. Even if there are employees who prefer a slightly more hands-off approach, at a time like this, being more connected as a manager is definitely bound to pay dividends as far as this team members' engagement is concerned. In fact, if you specifically look at this last statistic that comes from Gallup, now this is from a slightly different research, but and this research focused more on how do you work with remote workers. But if you apply it in the current situation where most people are working remotely, it tells you the need to have regular conversations with your team members, have a weekly connect with team members as a way of driving motivation for the team. And the third major orchestrator, which is your culture and employee experience. So in addition to, or actually in alignment with what the leaders and the managers are doing, there needs to be a larger shift in the approach towards employee experience and to culture building. In fact, there's some very interesting research that has come out from Kincentric, data that they have collected over the course of the pandemic itself. And it talks about how the leading organizations have understood that what employees want is changing, and they are changing their outlook. They're delivering especially an intentional and differentiated employee experience. So this entire point about moments that matter as far as employee experience is considered, that itself is changing. Those moments themselves are changing. You know what, let's take a little step beyond this research from Kincentric. I would actually go on to make this statement saying that it's, instead of talking about moments that matter, it's about realizing that every moment matters. In fact, when we talk about change in culture, when we talk about changes in employee experience, think about a simple situation. There is a Zoom call happening, or large team meeting going on, and suddenly someone's toddler enters the room. How is it that everyone else reacts? So in your company, what happens? Is it that suddenly everyone goes quiet and very meekly, quietly, the employee takes the toddler, takes him or her out of the room? That's one option. The second option is that, people just wave a little bit, there's a little bit of a smile, but that's it. Or is it that everyone suddenly breaks in and says, oh, wow, hello, how are you? And tries to actually engage and talk to the kid. Now, these are things that really matter in a situation like this. This will determine how comfortable the employee feels about it. This will determine how much connectedness and bonding there is. So just, a little bit of a status check at this stage of the webinar. Has there been too much gyan? If not, if there has been a little bit of that, I'm sorry for that. Let's take a quick quiz. So dictionary.com recently did a Twitter poll amongst their users, and they asked users to talk about what are the words that you've gotten tired of hearing during this pandemic. The first one was the new normal. So people are sick of hearing of the new normal. The second was social distancing. Any guesses what the third one is? And maybe you can just take a quick moment to type out your responses in the chat. So most despised words during the pandemic. Okay, so the word is unprecedented. But let's try to use this word in a positive context. Our assertion is that the COVID impacted work environment actually provides unprecedented opportunities to drive engagement. You know what? There are a lot of these challenges, but along with these challenges, there are so many opportunities that have really come up. So for all the debate and criticism that we've heard about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, in a situation of crisis, in a situation like this pandemic, this really comes into play. Changes can range from a loss of connection, the shift to a virtual work environment, new concerns around stress, health, safety, financial wellness, work-life balance. So all these things have become suddenly very, very important. And now organizations that can work on each of these issues, that can systematically address these issues and really build it into the way your company operates, into the way your culture is oriented, it can give you a huge opportunity to actually engage and motivate your workforce. So that logically brings us to the latter and more actionable aspects of today's webinar, which is what is it specifically that organizations and HR professionals can do to drive employee engagement? Now, before we dive into specific measures, it's helpful to pick a framework that will help us analyze some of these things. Each of the big consulting firms, Kincentric, Mercer, Korn Ferry, Gallup, all of them have their own frameworks for employee engagement. But we've picked the Gallup framework because, in our mind, it's these 12 simple questions which they have validated with lots and lots of research, and very clearly organizations with high levels of employee engagement have had employees respond very positively to these top 12 questions. So I'll let you have a quick look at these questions. They're clubbed. The first two questions really correspond to basic needs of employees. The next four questions talk about what kind of management support they're getting. The next four questions talk about teamwork. And the last two questions get into growth. So what we're going to do over the next few slides is go through each of these 12 questions, talk about how the COVID impacted workplace has changed our response on each of these questions, or changed the situation or circumstances around these questions. And then what is it that organizations can really do to either mitigate that impact or actually in certain cases leverage that impact. So the first question, which really talks about employees knowing what is expected of them at work. Now it addresses both the larger understanding of what is it that my role is expected to do, and it also at a more tactical level talks about what am I expected to do on a day-to-day basis, what are my tasks for today, what do I have to accomplish. Now, in terms of the impact, communication of expectations on task activities has gone down. Whatever said and done, we are much better at communicating in person. When we are working in person, you can go up to someone, you haven't understood something, you can go and seek clarifications. That gets so much more difficult. If I have to sit and block your time and say, oh, you know what, you gave me some instructions, now I'm setting up another meeting to get clarifications on the instructions that you gave me. Or if I have to type out a long mail and then you write back certain answers and then I'm still confused, it just goes into a loop. And also very importantly, for certain roles, the roles might have become more important or more relevant in the pandemic. Certain roles may have actually got impacted negatively during the pandemic. So there are a lot of these factors at play when it comes to people understanding what's expected of them. Now, what is it that organizations can do? First thing, increase the focus on delegation and expectation setting. And in a lot of cases, you might actually have to do certain trainings or refresher trainings for your managers, upskill your managers on how to do effective delegation and expectation setting. At a more tactical or at a more infrastructure level, if you don't have messaging tools as part of in your company, introduce them. If you already have them, try to increase their utilization. So in a lot of organizations, a lot of these tools exist, but the utilization is something that is a question mark. So focus on utilization. In some cases, you might have to relook roles themselves in view of the market changes and the market conditions. There might be need to do revised goal setting with team members. And another very interesting one and a very powerful one, can you help employees to create very brief one sentence mission statements for them, for their roles? What is it that I'm expected to do? How is it that I'm impacting the world? How is it that I'm impacting the organization through the role that I'm doing? Help people understand the larger meaning behind their roles. The second question, which really talks about, do I have the necessary tools? Do I have the necessary resources in order to do my work right? Now, clearly, and I'm not going to harp on this too much, infrastructure and work conditions at employees' homes are suboptimal. Anjali spoke about this and explained how, both from a technology standpoint, from a furniture standpoint, from a distraction standpoint, things are not ideal. In certain roles, there might be need for specific tools, access to certain types of databases. There are certain roles which require, different monitors. You might need 2 monitors instead of a simple laptop screen. So there are a lot of genuine challenges that have come in with regard to being able to do your work optimally. What can organizations do? The first and most important thing to understand is that these challenges might be different for each person. Each person's situation could be very, very different. So can we as organizations, can we as leaders, can managers understand the extent of challenges faced by each and every employee and actually build some of that into the work expectations? And the second, of course, is to design and launch infrastructure programs that will enable effective work from home. Now, there are organizations, well-funded organizations or rich organizations, which are actually going out and giving grants. I recently heard that Google has given $1,000 grant to buy furniture. Amazon, I believe, is also giving out grants. Now, if your organization can do something around that, great. Even if you cannot, like I shared earlier, start by understanding what people are going through. Also, I don't want to take away some of Anjali's thunder, but towards the end of the presentation, she will also talk about how you can try to solve some of these infrastructure issues slightly differently, with a little bit of creativity, with a little bit of unprecedented measures. The third question that we have at work, I have the opportunity to do what I do best every day. Now, this really talks about saying that as professionals, we each have certain things that we can do extremely well, certain things that put us in that zone, certain things that come more naturally to us, for which our skills are best honed. Now, a lot of times, we're talking about how roles have changed, how opportunities have changed during this pandemic. And a lot of times there might be roles where people cannot get that chance to do what they do best. Just think of an example of someone who does physical training sessions. And suddenly you don't have a classroom. You're not able to establish that eye contact with your trainees in that room. You're not able to effectively leverage the space in that room. A lot of things that trainers do extremely well. There's that theater that they have. How do they engage the audience? They're not able to do that. There are changes that are happening. Also, there's limited visibility and opportunities to showcase some of our skills. And that is a genuine challenge today. What is it that organizations can do? First of all, reinforce the importance of the role that is being played. And here again, that point that we made about helping employees create mission statements, help them understand the importance of the role that they're playing. Second thing, there might be certain internal projects that you can leverage them on. Let's take an example of someone who is, let's say, a technical project manager. And let's say for some reason, a project is on hold. Can that person's project management skills or project management expertise be leveraged on certain internal projects? Why can't we do some more of that? So try to start thinking about what is it that this person does really well. As a manager, can I see that this person is possibly getting lesser exposure, lesser opportunities to showcase those skills, to showcase that kind of work? And can I look for additional opportunities to give to that individual? Question 4 really talks about recognition or praise. This really talks about how it's not just about formal appreciation that matters. Sometimes it's just about someone walking up to you and smiling at you and saying, thank you so much for that. And there is a huge impact that happens when you have limited face time. People are not able to look at each other, even if you're in the workplace. But Anjali spoke about how people have masks. You can't see the person's smile. So there's limited face time, there are limited opportunities. Recognition does take a beating in these times. Now, the important part when you're thinking about organizational measures, yes, you need to look at the formal programs. So if you might want to revamp some of your programs, you might want to launch new recognition programs, or you should definitely be looking into utilization of your current programs and saying, okay, how can we push this up? How can we nudge managers and leaders to drive utilization of these recognition programs even more? But also very importantly, it's about that cultural shift. How can we become that organization, if we're not already, that just verbally often or just through a one-line sentence saying, thank you, that was great work done, that makes a huge difference for employees. And there are certain managers who believe that you shouldn't be too open with recognition, otherwise it gets undervalued. Our belief is that recognition is something that you should not hold back with. You should look for every opportunity. There are different types of recognition. There are formal and informal channels. Utilize the right channel, but do not hold back on recognition. The fifth question, my supervisor or someone at work seems to care about me as a person. This question really digs into how emotionally engaged leaders and managers are with their teams. And I'm going to refer back to a slide earlier about how leaders and managers must set the example for others to follow. They must be willing to showcase or show their own challenges, show their own concerns, show their own vulnerabilities. Now, in terms of impact, the opportunity for emotional connect has actually gone up. We are all dealing with these tough situations. All of us, for a change, actually have at least some common ground in terms of things that are irking us or bothering us. And that actually gives us an opportunity to connect more, to bond more with each other. There's this opportunity for family connect. In the past, HR teams have tried to figure out ways of how do we get the family more engaged, how do we do family days or bring your pet to work day and all of that. You know what? Every day is bring your pet to work day. Every day is family day. So those are great opportunities that we have. Another thing that's taken a little bit of a beating is celebrations of personal events, birthdays, work anniversaries, where the entire team would get together and it would help the person feel cared for. Now that's gone down, but there are things that organizations can do. So starting with the leaders and managers, get them to set the right example, put in that additional effort to engage with team members' families. I was telling you about my conversation with my friend and what's happening in his company. What he told me is that in one of their first few town halls, the CEO actually got his kid to come in the middle of the town hall and had sent out a very clear message to people that, you know what, you're working from home. It's going to happen. Your kids are going to come into meetings, and that's okay. It's acceptable. Don't feel sheepish about it. Let's actually enjoy that. Let's value that interaction. And with that spirit, think about what kind of programs that you can launch to engage with families better. Think about organizing virtual celebrations. In fact, in these virtual celebrations, how can we involve the families even better? Can we throw, say, a surprise party for a team member by involving their spouse? Question 6, there is someone at work who encourages my development. Now over here, this question really aims to bring out the difference between a work environment where each person goes about doing their own business, or whether there are people an employee can look to for encouragement and mentorship. Now, obviously, there has been a significant impact. Our work-related conversations have got more transactional. There's a clear agenda for meetings. Even when you call someone up, you're calling them up for A, B, C, D things. And a lot of the larger conversation, how are things with you at a personal level, at a professional level, where are you going with your career? Those conversations have kind of got a little muted. And importantly, the interaction with managers, the FaceTime with managers, the FaceTime with your immediate team members, that itself has gone down. So there has been a huge impact on mentorship programs, limited interaction with mentors. So in terms of organizational measures, this is a time for organizations to think about either launching or possibly revamping their mentorship programs. Encourage your leaders and managers, enable them to enroll as mentors, institutionalize mentoring, and actually bring a lot of rigor to it. Have clear tracking, have accountability mechanisms. These are a lot of reasons why mentorship programs have had limited success in organizations, because there isn't enough leadership commitment to it, there isn't enough manager commitment, and there isn't enough tracking and accountability. Bring those things in and reinforce the importance of development related conversations. The next question, at work my opinions seem to count. Now, this is where employees feel significant and relevant in terms of being able to express their opinions, having their opinions taken into account. Obviously, this gets impacted. There's limited visibility for team members. There's a tendency for more centralized and less democratic decision making that's happening. So organizations need to really rework their feedback and communication channels, ensure that employees are able to share regular feedback. In fact, Anjali is going to talk a little more about this at a later stage. Drive more inclusivity in decision making. Even if you can't do it for some of the larger org-wide decisions, can you do it at the team level? Ensure rigor of team calls and one-on-ones by managers. This is probably the time where I would say every team should be thinking of doing daily stand-ups. Train managers on how to get team members to speak up. There are a lot of team members who might be more quiet, people who tend to be more introverted. How do we get them to speak up? The next question, this really aims to explore if people find a larger meaning and purpose in what the company does and their own contributions to their work. Now, this can vary a lot from company to company depending on the industry, the nature of work, the relevance of the role itself, like we spoke about, and very importantly, how different companies have channelized their CSR programs, what responses have they given to the pandemic. So organizations which have really gone out of their way, employees are likely to feel more proud of their companies, to feel more connected with those companies, and possibly leads to greater engagement. What can you do as an organization? Discuss and help team members connect with the mission and purpose of the company. This is a great time to reinforce what is the mission and the purpose of the company. We spoke about the roles being played and the mission statements for the roles that employees are doing. You need to equip leaders, enable cascading of communication around what the company is doing, what are the company initiatives, what are the CSR practices that the company is doing. There might be a lot of great stuff that the company is doing. Do our employees know about what is happening? And importantly, there will be a lot of stories, individual stories of how people have done lots of different things to help the community, to help the company, to help customers. Can we create platforms for people to share those stories and for us to celebrate those stories? Next one, which is very important in terms of people feeling that I am doing a great job. I am really doing whatever it takes, putting in extra hours. There's so many challenges, so many constraints, but I'm doing whatever I can do to make sure my work gets done well. But I don't know what my team members are doing because there is lesser visibility, there is lesser connect with them. I cannot sit with them across the table and talk about our issues. Collaboration takes a huge beating. So as an organization, you need to invest in collaboration tools and platforms, things like Slack, MS Teams, etc. And importantly, drive adoption. Just introducing the tool is not enough. You need to track how is the utilization of these tools, what can we do to drive adoption of these tools, increase the utilization. Drive rigor in the managers conducting the regular status meetings. And like we said before, train managers on how to get people to speak up. Now this one, which is actually one of my favorite questions from the Q12 and possibly one of the most interesting and debated questions. I have a best friend at work. Now this really talks about two important things. It talks about the ability to confide in someone and seek support without fear of being judged. And it also talks about a sense of loyalty towards one's friends at the workplace. Now, this has taken a huge beating because of distancing both in terms of physical distancing and remote working. Anyway, interactions have gone down. Even when you're going to office, physical distancing norms have to be followed. You can't see people's faces. So it's taken a huge hit. Emotionally, especially in remote working, the center of our universe has suddenly become the household, the family. Earlier, there was a clear distinction. This is my time for my family. This is my time for my work friends. Now that distinction has gone. Now, what can organizations do? Again, you can't suddenly bring friendship back into the workplace, but you need to understand how can we support employees better. This is a great time for an employee assistance program. If you already had a program, reinforce communication around it. Importantly, understand that with counseling, with employee assistance programs, there are certain taboos that are associated with it. This is where leaders and managers encourage them to utilize these programs so that they can talk firsthand and share their own experiences with their teams and tell people, you know what, it's okay. All of us are going through these issues. It's okay to talk about them, and it's okay to seek help for them. Question 11 talks about not just set development goals, but really helping people assess where they are in their development journeys, the resultant impact on their work output and capabilities. Now, this has become extremely important, especially in conjunction with the next question, given how there has been a tendency to offset any reduction in workload with a barrage of training. A lot of times our first reaction is, oh, workload is down, let's send these 5 training sessions to our team members. Now, what's the impact? Frequency of catch-ups has possibly gone down. Work-related conversations are getting more transactional. We're not having enough larger development-related conversations. What can organizations do? Initiate development planning for employees. Tie in the increased load of training sessions to each employee's development plan. If I'm giving you more training programs, this is how it's helping you. This is where it's taking you from point X to point Y. Use nudges and reminders to drive regularity of performance check-ins amongst managers. And importantly, double down on development conversations if required. Like we said, more is better than less. The last one, which is this last year, I've had opportunities at work to learn and grow. Now, this speaks directly to a basic human need to be able to continuously learn and grow, be it personally or professionally. Now, there's an increased focus on training that could have a positive or a negative impact. Like we said, an overload of training without people seeing how is that training beneficial to them can actually disengage people. At the same time, well thought out training programs, tracked, telling people this is how you will utilize it, giving them opportunities to utilize the new skills, that can have a positive impact. We are also spending a lot of more time on self-reflection, thinking about ourselves as professionals, as people, as individuals. Where am I going with my life journey? And that can have both a positive and a negative impact on people. And then opportunities, of course, have gotten a little more limited. So that's a downside. As far as organizations are concerned, development planning for employees is extremely important. Tie in that increased load of training sessions to development plans. Provide opportunities for team members to utilize their skills and learnings, and drive conversations and thinking about larger existential learnings, personal growth through leaders' blogs, platforms for employees to share their own experiences. So have that more holistic approach towards sharing and towards thinking about the larger things in life. Now, with that, I'm going to hand over back to Anjali, where she's going to speak very specifically on what is it that we as HR professionals can specifically drive over and above these larger organizational measures. Over to you, Anne.
Thank you, Saurabh. So getting into the next section, like Saurabh was mentioning, we will talk a little more about what is it that we can do as HR professionals, and also what are some of the specific measures that can be taken. Now, if you look at HR team as the professionals and the roles that we are in, it is an area that can have the maximum amount of influence as far as the leaders and the business is concerned in terms of the managers. Now, while a lot of the actions that Saurabh spoke about were specific to managers and leaders, HR has to play a very active role. And HR has to be the one sort of leading the entire initiative and also bringing focus onto it. So basically what one needs to do as an HR team is, one, of course, be totally in control and in terms of the understanding of what the business context is, what are the constraints, where are we headed, what are the challenges. With that understanding, you will be able to build an approach. What is the messaging that you want to send to the employee? And what is it that you want the employee to understand in terms of the company's approach to the actions? Now, when you have this entire approach, you need to be able to review and align all your actions and initiatives along with this. So the larger, broader work that HR needs to do over here is look at the messaging and ensure that your entire effort is aligned to that messaging that has been agreed to with business. The next big action for HR is to equip leaders and managers, because having said that HR plays a critical role, a lot of that role is from the background, from behind the scenes. We have leaders and managers on the ground who need the support of HR managers to be able to effectively do their work. Now, what we mean by that is help managers ascertain what the training requirements are, what are the skills that will be required, are there gaps that we can address for the future, so that you can plan a training calendar according to that. Draft communications with them, help them draft their communication, ensure that you review that communication and that it is aligned with the larger message that you want to communicate. And this is where it becomes very important to play that role, because we have many managers. Now, everybody might have a little bit, difference in the way they write. Make sure that the message doesn't get lost, which is where you will play the role of ensuring consistency. Seek feedback constantly from employees and managers to ensure that you're, again, in touch with what the overall plan is. And then, of course, stay in touch with the market trends. It's extremely critical at a time like this. It always has been important to know what market is doing, but more so at a time like this, it's very important to know what some of your partners in the industry are doing, what some of the peers are doing, where the competition is going, and how the organizations are implementing their initiatives, which might impact you directly. The last in this is for you to drive and monitor the initiatives. Now, one thing is to plan the initiative, one thing is to make sure, the intent was aligned with the messaging and all of that. But it is very important to look at the overall implementation, look at how it was actually finally received by employees, and look at how the impact of that has worked out. So what you need to do here is use every opportunity possible to interact with the employees and get their personal feedback, get their understanding on how, as an employee, the initiative has impacted them. When you design and relaunch new initiatives, do not forget existing initiatives which might also have a solid impact. Saurabh touched upon some of them. For example, EAP. If you already have an EAP program, this is the time to reiterate its usage. This is the time to reiterate its benefits. You need to track the initiatives and ensure that you have tremendous amount of focus on implementation, much more than what you would have given in the past, normal scenario in the past. The very important part over here, which I definitely want to highlight, is the requirement of being agile and nimble in a situation like this. The environment is changing, and we cannot afford to be limited by our traditional methods and traditional thinking. We also cannot be limited by our traditional approach. If the situation is changing and the requirement on today's time is changing, we have to be agile with it. We have to change our way of doing things with it. So that's something which not only is the HR team, but someone who can work with the business and ensure that the managers learn from you. It's very important that it's imbibed within the team. We'll now get into some of the specific measures and initiatives that can be taken. And a lot of this was actually spoken about by Saurabh, so I won't go too much into the depth of these, but I will touch upon the areas, because this is where we really get down into actual actionables and initiatives that you can be looking at. Employee Assistance Program, I just referred to it on the previous slide. Now, this is a program where you can get counseling not just for employees, but also for their family. And at a time like this, where while yes, it's a word which probably is the most hated word right now, unprecedented times, but it's also an unprecedented environment which employees and family do not know how to deal with. We have never all been locked down with our family for 3 to 4 months at a stretch. And while, of course, we love our family, it does lead to friction. It does lead to lack of space in terms of, the emotional outbreak. Counseling is one thing which will really help employees and their family deal with this, work with the overall change in a more positive outlook. It's very important to encourage managers and leaders to use this service and then talk about it from their own personal experience. Nothing gives a recommendation more solid footing than personal experience. If I just ask you to use something versus I've gone for that counseling and I come back and talk about how great my experience was, there's a huge difference in the takeaway that the listener will have. And of course, share the stats, share numbers with employees so that the taboo that is attached with going for counseling, is broken. A lot of us are a lot more open to the idea of counseling now. In the past couple of years, mental health is something which is spoken about very openly now, not just in the society, but if you look at some of the celebrities, they've been coming out and talking about their journey. So it is a lot more acceptable. We just need to make sure that, it goes a little further more over the threshold for the employees to actually use the service. Goal settings and performance check-ins. Now, this is an area where a little more work will have to be done from an HR standpoint, where you help employees understand what the revised objectives of their role could be. With the environment changing, the descriptions of our role may not necessarily remain sacrosanct, may not necessarily remain what they were yesterday. Now, in the new role, can we help our employees identify those key objectives, identify those key areas that will now assess my performance and my success factors? What is the frequency that we do the performance check-ins? Can we increase that? Can the managers have more conversations? Drive a little more rigor on the feedback. If today, more than any time, any other time, feedback is extremely critical for employees because they're sitting away from the workplace. Link the L&D programs. This is something that Saurabh spoke about, assess the requirements and build the training programs according to that. Let's just not push training programs to employees. The last one here is something which I think is very critical as an initiative, if it can be done. Mentorship programs. We've all been there, done that when we talk about the traditional mentorship program where we have senior leaders talk about your career path and your career growth. Can we use that platform now in a different manner? Senior employees will be, will be able to adapt to this situation a lot better. Senior employees will probably be able to deal with this changing environment and the chaos and the panic a lot better because they've seen it from a work standpoint. They've also seen it from a life standpoint, given, if I assume that seniority is equal to age. Can we have senior employees mentor younger and junior employees, helping them understand how to manage this change, how to work through this change, how to change their work style according to the changed remote work setup. So use your mentoring program to step away from the traditional career growth to adapting to the work environment. Pulse surveys. Can we change the way we do surveys, align to the existing situation and do some quick surveys? We don't have to go back to those large, traditional, long-drawn surveys. Do very, very quick, timely topic check-ins, 5-10 questions. Are you doing okay? Do you need anything? Is your infrastructure fine? Are you getting updates? Some of those very, very hit the nail on the head and just, get immediate answers. In the past, we would usually listen, analyze result, and then plan an action plan. Can we now in the spirit of agility and speed, can we now plan an action, listen to them, and yes, adjust the course correct if required? Town halls and communication. Some of this, again, Saurabh spoke about, but can we increase the frequency? Can we bring global leaders to connect with our local employees and not just have, the local leaders just dealing with the situation as is? Get the global guys in, get them to connect with the employees so that they feel that, yes, the entire organization is together. Encourage leaders to open about, their personal situation. It's possible that the employees, are feeling anxious and paranoid. However, what is to say that the leaders are not? Just because you're a leader does not mean you won't feel that human, side of it. So can we get them to talk about their personal, apprehensions and fear and feel human so that the employees connect to them more? The last but not the least here is the recognition and celebrations. Now, this is something that Saurabh spoke about a great deal, so I'm not getting into it, but just reiterating that now is the time for extremely frequent, vocal, visible recognition. Just a quick pointer that our partner Vantage Circle has products across a lot of these spectrums. There's Vantage Fit under the overall wellness section, which you can look at as a part of the employee assistance program. There is the recognition tool itself that you can look at for the reward and recognition platform. And there is the Pulse survey tool as well. So if any of you are interested, the details are available on their website. You could go and check it out, but there are products available to help you through some of these. The last slide is where we get into a little bit of even further specifics. Now, all of us have always been used to doing things a certain way. This is the time to break away from the traditional way of doing things. Again, I might sound like a broken record, but yes, these are unprecedented times which require unprecedented solutions. We do not and cannot afford to be limited by our traditional way of doing things. Now, if you're doing reward and recognition, an employee who used to get a gift, right now, you're not sitting physically together. Is it possible for you to get all your team members together and say that, do a huddle, do an online huddle, order the gift online for the employee, which means you're bringing all of them together, they're getting engaged, and it's a non-work related thing, which will also sort of bring them together on the softer side. And then they're bringing something for an employee who will enjoy the fact that 5 team members, sat together and chose it for him or her. Can you plan manager and leader virtual open hours? Now, in a situation like this where we're not in office, it's difficult to know when your manager is free. In office, you could walk by their desk, you could walk by their cabin and just know that they're busy or not, drop in, have a conversation. Today, you don't have that luxury. Can we plan with our managers, block a certain slot on their calendar, maybe, in the morning, in the afternoon or evening, whatever works for their schedule, have it as open hours. That's the time the employee doesn't have to think twice, just pick up the phone and call the manager. They're available. It's an open slot for employees to reach out to them. The other idea here is kids and pets. Now, we used to plan bring your kids date in office. Now we can't do that, obviously. And there is an element of connecting with the family that Saurabh spoke about. Your kid just walks into the call, or my pet suddenly starts barking in the call. Can we make it an official thing? Can we plan a team meeting and say, today, everybody bring your kids, or today, everybody bring your pets? And for me, my pet is my kid. So can we bring everyone, bring your kid and pet onto the call? Can we plan it around that? Now, this might sound, small, and it might sound maybe silly to an extent, but you have no idea the impact that it can have on the emotional quotient that an employee feels with their company when their child or their, loved pet is asked to be brought on to a call in terms of the overall official setup. So that it goes really, really a long way from an emotional connect perspective. The last one over here is take your office chair home. Now, this might sound strange on the deck, but we actually heard of a company. I connected with a friend to just understand what their organization was doing. And this was really interesting to me because what they did is they realized their infrastructure is just sitting in office getting wasted. They had those nice, ergonomical chairs that were sitting in office. They had those nice big double monitors, which a lot of employees need for their work. Every item is tagged as an asset. We all know that the asset management team will always tag every item. They decided to let employees take those things home so that the infrastructure at home becomes better and a lot more productive. So employees were allowed to come, sign a sheet, track the asset number that they're taking, and just take an office chair and an office monitor back home to improve their infrastructure at home to be able to work better. Now, these are some, very quick ideas that we could share with you that some of the companies are doing. And I saw that was one of the questions that was coming up on the Q&A as well, that can we share real practices from organizations. We've done that in terms of the view that we had. But if some of you participants have some unique practices and you want to just share that on the Q&A or the chat, that would really help the other participants and us as well in terms of learning what some of the unique practices outside might be. That's all I had. With that, I'll hand it over to you, Partha.
Thanks, Anjali, and Saurav, thanks for the information. And I think it was pretty interesting, and a lot of queries are coming up. I think so. The next time, what we have to do is maybe when we send this recording and the presentation to employees, one idea might be collate all the Q&A which is coming, and some of these questions which we might not be able to answer now for lack of time. We might be able to give it. And also, I think the last point which you mentioned about, it's a good idea if other participants also, so there are like 200 plus participants today, if they can just sometimes give their ideas. We got some couple of pretty nice, interesting ideas which they have done. Then we can collate it together. And when you send you the mail, we can do that. But let's still take a few questions. I know we have crossed our time, but since people are still there, I'll just take a few questions. Okay. The first question was very interesting. So they said, how do you change the mindset of supervisors and colleagues who doubt your working from home efficiency? So it's so your managers are always like doubtful whether you are really working. Okay. I'm not sure it exactly falls in engagement, but if you want to take that.
I think it's a great question. In my time working as an HR partner, I used to always try to influence leaders and managers by asking them the right questions. I found that was a lot more powerful way of getting their attention and getting realization, by asking them questions rather than giving them gyan or giving them advice. And a lot of times, just ask them, what is it that will make you feel assured that people are working on what you've given them? How did you do the expectation setting with them? How are you going to assess their work? And help, that will help drive a larger understanding that it's not so much about the update that the employee has saying that I have from 2 o'clock to 3 o'clock, I did this, and from 3 o'clock to 4 o'clock, I did this, but really help them understand, saying, did I break up the work tasks effectively? Did I communicate the expectations appropriately to the team member? And did I get what was expected? Also, did I give the opportunity to the team member to understand what his or her constraints might be and which might impact the timeliness of the work? And let's definitely understand that there will be certain impacts, and we need to understand those. We need to be mindful of those.
So, so this is a slightly difficult. I think it's a difficult question. So we have furloughed 60% of the staff. So how do we engage the furloughed staff? I mean, I think this is more from a US angle.
So I think the most important thing, and we spoke about this in the last webinar as well, that when you have any of these cost-cutting measures, the most important thing is how candid, how truthful you are about what happened and why it happened. Can you explain that to people? And can you be sincere and genuine about it? That's the first step. The second step is, how do you treat them post that? Do you realize what is the level of sensitivity which you display towards people who have been furloughed? Then there are things that even if someone's been furloughed, that you still remind them that you are very much a part of this organization. So communication needs to continue flowing. I know of another organization which actually created resources, pulled in resources which would help parents talk to children about the COVID situation, which would help parents engage their children with necessary content. In fact, they even had some employees' children reading out stories, which were then recorded and posted on that portal for children of other employees. Now, the thing is, here you're telling people that, this is a tough time. This is a really tough time. And that's why we've had to take some of these hard actions. It's not that we don't care about you as a person. You are an equally important team member to us. It's just that by virtue of your role and by virtue of where the company is today, we've had to take some of these tough decisions, but you still matter equally to us. So the communication should never stop.
I just want to add to that. So while Saurabh talks about communication, I think that's key. And I just want to throw in a few examples of the opportunities that you can take to for the communication. One, of course, stay in touch. Frequent check-ins is not limited to the employees who are actively working. Frequent check-ins by managers is equally important for these employees on furloughs, because when they come back, and hopefully when they will come back, their engagement will be even more important, because they could impact the employees who are there today. Secondly, if there's a birthday, if there's a work anniversary, continue to wish them. These things matter a lot, because that's when you feel that, yes, I'm still a part of this organization and my birthday was not forgotten. And it wasn't just that, okay, because I was in office, my work anniversary was important. Furlough is unpaid leave. The employee is on leave. The employee has not gone. You need to treat that employee as an active employee till he or she is there on your roles, even if it is a furlough. So that's something which you really need to remember.
Thanks, Anjali. So we'll still, I think, Anjali, Saurabh, you're okay for another 5 minutes, right? Because there's a lot of questions and I think it's a pretty interesting session. So another 5 minutes, folks. And so Maithili has asked, very important, what can we do for the leadership team as they are having burnout? They're more stressed and busiest in the organization. Is there anything specific which we can do? I know I don't think it can have a list of items right now, but any broad thoughts on that?
It's a great question, because we've been, really talking about everything that the managers and leaders have to do, and yeah, they are carrying a large part of the role. A couple of very quick suggestions, and we can think of more and come back. Is this a time that we can help leaders with a coach? Can we get a coach attached to the leaders? While yes, they might be pressed for time, but the coach might be able to help them talk through some of these challenges and vent out their own, emotional burden that they might be carrying, given that they're sort of absorbing it from the employees. Can we work with our EAP provider outside the coach? Can we work with EAP provider and have a counselor attached to the leader, that the leader can reach out to, a dedicated counselor, because you don't want them to call on a central line and just get connected to someone. Can we have a dedicated counselor? Can we have resources available to them, in terms of being able to equip them on how they can deal with this situation? So these are some very quick things that come to my mind. But yeah, we can definitely think and work out some more on that. I don't know if Saurabh has a little more to add on it.
I think we'll also have some other questions and some other suggestions from other attendees, what they are doing in their company. So I think we will share it together once we send you the presentation to everyone. We'll share some of this other stuff. And maybe it's a good idea, in the future, to put some kind of a discussion forum among the attendees. Just one more question. So let me just randomly pick up one thing. So I handle a bunch of engineering managers, and they don't seem, they're very rigid and they're not speaking up to their team. They have been used to working in a different environment in the office. Is there any way to train them for doing that?
So I think, again, I'm going to refer a little bit to my learnings and my experiences as an HR partner. What I realized is that you can do as many training programs and give as much gyan to managers as an HR partner or as an HR team. But the maximum learning, the maximum acceptance comes through peer learning. In fact, we started off a very different approach to manager learning, which was brown bag sessions, get different managers in, and out of those managers, pick one or two managers who we believe really live by some of the things that we want to bring out, and get those managers to actually talk. So the session gets moderated by HR, but it's not HR that's delivering the advice or delivering what has to be communicated. That communication is happening from their peers, people who are other managers. So it becomes a lot more relatable. It is not some gyan that HR is throwing at you, but it is really about what your colleagues are facing, which is very similar to what you are facing, and therefore the acceptance becomes much higher.
Right, Saurabh, thank you. So a lot of people are asking questions. I think one common question is, what are the activities which we can do? Very specifically, the last slide which Anjali referred to. So we have certain ideas around that. We will also share. Some of the other questions, I will give it to Saurabh and Anjali post this webinar. See if you can answer that. That also will include to those people directly, writing to them on their mails. Okay. Thank you, everyone, and look out for the next webinar, which will be coming up in the next 2 weeks. Okay, so every 2 weeks we do it. Thanks, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Partha. Thanks, Anjali.